The girl ran toward the forest while everyone else was running away. Her bare foot slipped in the red dust, but she didn't stop. The royal drums thundered behind her, echoing across the clay rooftops of Nuada village. Women screamed. Children clung to their mothers. Men shouted warnings into the wind. "Don't go near the hollow grove," someone cried. But she was already limping toward it. They used to say her shadow curdled milk. They used to say goats refused to feed when she passed. They said the spirits twisted her bones before she ever took her first breath. They never said her name. Her name was Amara. But in the village of Nuada, where the sun baked the mud walls gold and the elders' words carried more weight than iron, she was called the Bent One. Amara had been born on a storm-heavy night. Thunder rolled across the sky like drums of warning. By dawn, her mother was gone, her tiny body wrapped in white cloth. The midwives whispered in corners. "It is a curse," one said. "The ancestors are angry," said another. Amara's back curved forward like a bowed tree. Her right arm was thin and weak, hanging close to her side. Her left leg dragged when she walked, carving uneven lines into the earth. But there was something else about her. Her eyes were silver. Not gray. Not brown. Silver, like moonlight trapped in water. No one noticed. Except her father. Chaik. He would lift her gently, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers. "You are not wrong," he would murmur against her forehead. "The world is confused. That is all." For 12 years, it was just the two of them in their small compound at the edge of Nuada. He farmed cassava and millet. She followed him slowly through the fields, listening to stories of warriors and wise queens. At night, when pain made her bones ache, he would sit beside her mat. One day, he'd say, "Your heart will show them what your body hides." Then one Harmattan afternoon, beneath a sky the color of ash, Chaik collapsed in the fields. 3 days later, the drums beat for his burial. Amara stood beside the grave, her curved spine trembling. Her Aunt Kem stood beside her, face streaked with tears that did not reach her eyes. "Do not worry," Kem said softly, her hand cold on Amara's shoulder. "You will stay with us now. You are family." That was the first lie. The kindness lasted exactly 6 days. On the 7th morning, before the roosters crowed, Kem's voice split the darkness. "Amara! Up! Fetch water. 6 pots. And if you spill a drop, you will go again." Amara tied the rope around the clay jug and bent beneath its weight. The path to the stream was rocky. Each step sent fire up her crooked spine. Children laughed when she passed. "Walk faster, crooked stick. Careful, she'll break." By the time she returned, Kem's daughter, Zina, was waiting in the courtyard, arms folded. "Mother," Zina giggled loudly, "why does she always smell like pigs?" "Because," Kem replied sweetly, "even pigs deserve someone lower than them." They laughed together. And Amara said nothing. Years folded into each other. The hut beside the goat pen became her room. Her hands hardened. Her spirit did not. Then came the day the royal drums shook the sky. Boom. 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 People flooded toward the marketplace. Traders abandoned woven baskets. Palm oil spilled onto the ground, forgotten. In the center of the square stood the king's herald, draped in white linen marked with the crest of Obiora kingdom. "Hear this," his voice boomed. "Prince Kellen, only son of King Adewale, has been struck by the midnight plague. Our healers have failed. He fades like a dying ember." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "There is one cure," the herald continued. "The star blossom. It blooms once every 20 years in the hollow grove beyond the Blackwood forest. Any maiden who retrieves it and saves the prince shall become his bride. Rich or poor, noble or common." The marketplace erupted. Xena spun in circles, bracelets clinking. Mother! I will be queen! Nkem's eyes gleamed like polished stone. Yes, my daughter. This is your moment. From the edge of the courtyard, Amara's heart thudded. Not because of crowns, but because someone was dying. That night, as Xena prepared silk wrappers and braided her hair with gold beads, Amara approached Nkem carefully. Aunt, she said quietly, may I go too? Silence fell. Then laughter, sharp and cutting. You? Nkem wiped a tear from her eye. You can barely reach the stream. The forest spirits would devour you. Xena leaned closer. The prince would faint before the sickness kills him. Amara lowered her eyes. But something inside her did not lower. Over the next 3 days, maidens from every corner of Obiora entered the Blackwood forest. They returned screaming. The trees whisper. The ground moves. The spirits ask questions. By the 4th day, no one dared step forward. The herald returned, voice heavy. The prince has 2 days left. Is there no one brave enough? Silence. That night, moonlight spilled through the cracks in Amara's hut. She stared at the ceiling. Her father's voice echoed. You are not wrong. She sat up. Her bones screamed. Her leg trembled. But she stood. She wrapped herself in her father's old cloak and slipped past Nkem's sleeping form. The air outside was cold. The entrance to Blackwood Forest yawned like a waiting mouth. She swallowed and stepped inside. If your heart is already racing for her, pause right now and subscribe. Because what waits inside that forest will test everything she believes about herself. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. The darkness swallowed her whole. Whispers slithered through the trees. Bent child. Unwanted child. Turn back. Branches snagged her wrapper. Shadows tugged her dragging foot. Why walk forward when your body drags you back? A voice hissed. Because someone needs help, she whispered. The forest fell silent. Then the path opened. Hours passed. Her foot bled. Her breath grew shallow. Finally, she reached a clearing washed in silver light. At its center stood a woman glowing like the moon itself. Behind her, rising from a pool of luminous water, bloomed the star blossom, white petals shimmering like captured starlight. Well, the woman said softly, circling her. A broken girl where beauties failed. I am not broken, Amara replied, voice shaking. The woman smiled. 3 riddles. Answer, and the flower is yours. Fail, and you belong to the forest. Amara nodded. What is stronger than kings, more feared than spirits? The poor possess it, the rich crave it, and if consumed, it kills. Amara closed her silver eyes. Nothing, she said. Nothing is stronger than kings. Nothing is more feared than spirits. The poor have nothing. The rich crave nothing. If you eat nothing, you die. The woman's smile thinned. Second. I have no wings yet soar. I have no tears yet cry. Wherever I drift, shadows follow. A cloud. Silence deepened. Last. I am always hungry. Feed me and I grow. Touch me and you bleed red. Amara remembered tending fires before dawn. Flame, she whispered. The clearing trembled. You are clever, the spirit said. Then she waved her hand. A mirror appeared. Amara saw herself straight-backed. Strong-limbed. Radiant. I can give you this, the spirit murmured. Beauty. Strength. No pain. The prince will adore you. All I ask is your compassion. A small thing. Amara stared. For one heartbeat, she wanted it. Then she shook her head. I would rather limp with kindness than stand with cruelty. The spirit stepped aside. Take the flower, child. Amara plucked the star blossom. It pulsed warm in her palm. And far away, in a palace wrapped in grief, Prince Kellen gasped for breath. The star blossom burned warm in Amara's trembling hand as she stumbled out of Blackwood Forest. Dawn was breaking, streaking the sky in bruised shades of purple and gold. Birds that had once avoided her now scattered into the air above her head. The forest no longer whispered. It parted. Every step toward Nwada felt heavier than the last. Blood marked the path behind her where her dragging foot had split open against jagged roots. Her weak arm shook violently from exhaustion. But she smiled. He will live, she whispered to herself. He will live. By the time the clay walls of the village came into view, the sun had climbed high. Smoke curled from cooking fires. Life had resumed as though no prince were dying. She crossed into her aunt's compound quietly. Her vision blurred. She reached the goat pen and collapsed onto the dirt floor, clutching the glowing flower against her chest. Just for a moment, she closed her eyes. Just for a moment. When Amara awoke, the sun was sharp overhead. The warmth against her chest was gone. Her hands clutched emptiness. For a second she thought she was still dreaming. Then she heard it. Laughter. Not from the compound. From the direction of the royal palace. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. No, she whispered. She pushed herself up. Her legs wobbled. Pain screamed through her spine. She staggered toward the sound. The palace courtyard of Obiora was packed. Drummers stood in rows. Nobles in indigo robes formed a half-circle around the king's throne. At the center knelt Nkem and Xena. And in Xena's hands, the star blossom. Amara stopped at the edge of the crowd, hidden in shadow. Nkem bowed dramatically. Your Majesty, she said, voice syrup-sweet, my daughter braved Blackwood Forest. She faced the spirits and returned with the cure. The king leaned forward, eyes sharp beneath his beaded crown. Is this true? Xena lifted her chin. Yes, Your Majesty. The forest trembled before me. Amara's breath caught. King Adewale's voice was calm but heavy. Then tell me, maiden. What riddles did the guardian spirit ask of you? Xena blinked. Riddles? A ripple moved through the crowd. Yes, the king said slowly. Every tale of the Hollow Grove speaks of 3 riddles. Xena swallowed. They asked about bravery and loyalty. Nkem gripped her daughter's wrist tightly. The king's eyes darkened. You lie. Gasps exploded like sparks. From his couch beside the throne, Prince Kellen stirred weakly. His skin was pale as ash. His lips cracked when he spoke. Father, someone truly walked that forest. I feel it. Do not punish truth. Amara's chest tightened painfully. She could walk away. She could remain invisible. It would be safer. Her aunt's words echoed in her head. Stay quiet and you will survive. But her father's voice rose louder. You are not wrong. Her hands stopped shaking. She stepped forward. Lies. The word sliced through the courtyard like a blade. Every head turned. Amara limped into the open space, dirt still streaked across her skin. Blood stained her wrapper. Her silver eyes reflected sunlight like molten metal. The crowd recoiled instinctively. It was I, she said. Nkem's face drained of color. You insolent. Silence, the king commanded. He studied Amara carefully. You claim the star blossom? Yes, your majesty. Then answer what she could not. Amara inhaled slowly. The first riddle, what is stronger than kings, more feared than spirits, possessed by the poor and desired by the rich, and kills if eaten? The crowd leaned in. Nothing, she said steadily. Nothing is stronger than kings. Nothing is more feared than spirits. The poor have nothing. The rich desire nothing. If you eat nothing, you die. A murmur rippled. The second, I soar without wings. I cry without tears. Wherever I drift, shadows follow. A cloud. The king's fingers tapped against his throne. And the last? Her voice softened. Flame. Always hungry. Feed it and it grows. Touch it and you bleed red. Silence fell heavy. Prince Kellen pushed himself upright despite the healer's protest. She speaks truth, he whispered hoarsely. I feel it. The king's gaze sharpened. After the riddles, what happened? Amara hesitated. She offered me a gift. Nkem's nails dug into her own palms. What gift? The king pressed. A straight back. Strong limbs. Beauty. She said the prince would fall at my feet. The courtyard held its breath. What was the price? My compassion. The word trembled in the air. And you refused? Amara lifted her chin. I would rather remain bent and kind than stand tall and cruel. The silence broke like thunder. Before the king could speak, a voice called out from the edge of the crowd. Your Majesty! A hunter stepped forward, bow slung across his back. I tracked antelope near Blackwood 2 nights past. I saw this maiden enter the forest. I watched her return at dawn bleeding and exhausted. I followed her to her compound. I saw those women take the flower from her hands while she slept. Gasps turned to outrage. Nkem fell to her knees. Mercy! I only wanted my daughter to rise above this cursed village. You stole from courage, the king said coldly. You lied before your throne. Guards seized Nkem and Zina. The king turned to Amara. You have saved my son. Name your reward. Amara looked at Prince Kellen. He was so young. So fragile. I need no reward, she said quietly. Give him the flower. Prince Kellen struggled to stand. I choose her. The words crashed through the courtyard. Zina screamed. Look at her. But the prince stepped closer to Amara. For the first time, someone looked directly into her eyes. Not past them. Not through them. Into them. They shine like moonlight, he murmured. Amara lowered her gaze instinctively. I am not beautiful, she whispered. You walked into death, he said softly. That is beauty. If this moment is hitting your heart the way it should, pause right now. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that worth is deeper than appearance. And subscribe, because what happens next will change everything. The royal healer approached with reverence. The star blossom was ground into luminous liquid. 1 dose, the healer said. It was always said to heal a single soul. Prince Kellen shook his head. We share it. The king hesitated. Then nodded. The healer divided the glowing potion into 2 cups. Amara's hands trembled as she accepted hers. Drink, the prince whispered. They lifted the cups together. The liquid burned like sunlight down her throat. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then pain. White hot and blinding. Her spine cracked like dry wood. She cried out as something shifted deep inside her bones. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Her bent back began to rise. Slowly. Slowly. Like a tree stretching toward light after years in shadow. Her weak arm thickened with strength. Her dragging leg straightened. The ache that had been her lifelong companion vanished like mist under sun. When the light faded, Amara stood tall. Truly tall. The courtyard gasped. But the transformation that stunned them most was not her body. It was her smile. Prince Kellen stood beside her, color restored to his cheeks, strength filling his limbs. He took her hand. "Will you stand with me?" he asked gently. Tears blurred her silver eyes. Yes. The drums erupted. The crowd roared. But not everyone rejoiced. Nkem stared at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. And something like shame flickered across her face. The king raised his hand. Justice remains. The courtyard quieted. And what Amara would say next would define the kind of queen she would become. The courtyard fell into a silence so deep it seemed even the wind was waiting. Nkem and Zina knelt in chains before the throne, their fine wrappers stained with dust, their pride shattered before the entire kingdom. Only hours ago they had stood there believing a crown was within reach. Now they trembled. King Adewale's voice carried across the stone courtyard like distant thunder. For theft. For deception. For standing before your king with lies upon your tongue, the punishment is death. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Zina began to sob openly. "Mother, do something." Nkem crawled forward, her forehead pressing into the stone. "Mercy, your majesty." "We were desperate. I only wanted my daughter to have a better life." The king did not look moved. He turned slowly to Amara. "You saved my son. The judgment now rests with you." The word struck her harder than any insult she had ever endured. For years she had slept beside goats. For years she had swallowed humiliation like bitter herbs. For years she had been told she was less than nothing. Now thousands of eyes watched her. Waiting. Amara's newly straight spine felt unfamiliar. Her body was lighter, stronger. But her heart, the same heart that had carried her through Blackwood, beat steadily in her chest. She stepped forward. "Nkem," she said softly. Her aunt dared to look up. "Why?" Amara asked. Tears streaked through the dust on Nkem's face. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid my daughter would always live in your shadow of pity. Afraid beauty would not be enough." Amara's gaze shifted to Zina. Zina's eyes were red, but there was something else in them now. Not pride. Not mockery. Fear. For a long moment, Amara said nothing. The crowd leaned closer. Prince Kellen's fingers brushed hers gently, grounding her. "You owe them nothing," he murmured. She knew that. But she also remembered something else. Her father kneeling in the fields, holding her face between his rough palms. "The world will try to harden you," he had said. "Do not let it." Amara turned back to the king. "Let them live." A collective gasp broke through the courtyard. The king's brows lifted. "Explain." For 6 years, Amara continued steadily, "I rose before dawn. I fetched water until my shoulders burned. I slept beside animals. Let them tend the royal livestock. Let them feel the weight of labor without cruelty. Let them live long enough to understand." Nkem's lips parted in disbelief. Zina stared at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. The king studied her carefully. "Mercy," he said quietly. "After what they did?" Amara nodded. "If I answer cruelty with cruelty, then the forest should have taken me." Silence lingered. Then the king raised his staff. "It is decided. 6 years in service to the royal farms. You will labor honestly. And you will thank the future queen for the breath in your lungs." Guards lifted Nkem and Zina to their feet. As they were led away, Nkem's voice broke. "Why would you spare us?" Amara met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "Because I was never the broken one." The words struck deeper than any punishment. The drums began again, slow at first, then rising into celebration. 3 days later, Obiora Kingdom transformed into a sea of color. Indigo banners draped across palace walls. Palm wine flowed freely. Drummers from every village gathered beneath the great baobab tree in the royal courtyard. The wedding of Prince Kellen and Amara, now Princess Amara of Obiora, was unlike anything the kingdom had ever seen. Women who once mocked her now wept openly as she walked past. Children stared wide-eyed at her silver eyes, no longer afraid. The air smelled of roasted yams and spiced meat. Lanterns hung like tiny suns against the darkening sky. As she stood beside Kellen beneath the woven canopy, she felt the weight of 1,000 gazes. Not judging. Not mocking. Watching with hope. Kellen squeezed her hand gently. "Are you afraid?" he asked softly. She considered the question. "Yes," she admitted. "Good," he replied with a small smile. "So am I." She laughed, a sound the courtyard had never heard from her before. It rang bright and clear. When the elder bound their wrists with golden thread, Amara felt something settle in her spirit. Not just joy. Purpose. The years that followed reshaped Obiora in ways no one expected. King Adewale gradually placed more decisions in Kellen's hands. And Kellen, in turn, listened closely to Amara. She remembered what it felt like to be unseen. So she built homes for orphaned children along the eastern ridge, where warm sunlight reached first at dawn. She created a council where women, farmers, traders, widows, could speak directly to the throne. She ordered that no child born different would ever be cast aside without protection from the crown. At first, some elders resisted. "She is too soft," one muttered during a council meeting. Amara met his gaze calmly. "Strength is not measured by how hard you strike," she replied. "It is measured by what you choose not to destroy." Over time, the kingdom changed. Fields flourished. Trade routes expanded. Laughter filled markets that once carried whispers. And something else changed too. One evening, years later, Amara walked alone toward the royal farms. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in amber fire. She paused near the livestock pens. Nkem and Zina were there, hands roughened by honest labor, faces lined by time and humility. They noticed her immediately and straightened. "Your Highness," Nkem said quietly. There was no bitterness in her voice now. Only respect. Amara stepped closer. "How fare you?" she asked. Zina hesitated, then answered honestly. "We work. We eat. We sleep. It is peaceful." Amara nodded. "That is good." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Zina swallowed. "I was wrong," she said softly. "About you." Amara's silver eyes reflected the fading sunlight. "Yes," she said gently. "You were." But there was no anger in her tone. Only truth. 6 years passed. On the final day of their sentence, Nkem and Zina were released. They did not ask for wealth. They did not ask for status. They returned to Nwada quietly, carrying only what they had earned. And they never again mocked a child for how they were born. Years turned into decades. King Kellen and Queen Amara ruled with wisdom and compassion. Children across Obiora grew up hearing a different story than the one whispered at her birth. Not of curses, but of courage. Not of twisted bones, but of an unbreakable heart. One evening, as rain tapped gently against palace windows, a young girl stood before Queen Amara. The child's arm was slightly shorter than the other. Her lip trembled. They laugh at me, she whispered. Amara knelt before her, silver eyes level with the girl's. Let them laugh, she said softly. The world is still learning how to see. The girl blinked. Will it ever learn? Amara smiled. It will. If you refuse to become what hurt you. Outside, thunder rolled gently across the sky, not as a warning this time, but as a reminder. That storms do not always mean destruction. Sometimes, they announce transformation. And in a kingdom once ruled by fear of what was different, a queen with silver eyes proved that the most powerful thing a person can carry into darkness is kindness. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that courage doesn't always look the way the world expects, share it with someone who needs hope today. Because somewhere out there, another child believes they are broken. And they're waiting to learn they are not. The end.